Okay, this is another in the series of the sermons of the Native American Church of the Ghost Answers, www.ghostanswers.org. And today we're going to talk about the gateway to the Western Corridor, which I discussed about a week and a half ago in a previous sermon. We're right here in the background is the Santa Monica Bay. Now these gateways, there's a western gateway and an eastern gateway in the Caribbean. This western gateway here in the Pacific at the 33rd degree parallel here in the Santa Monica Bay. Behind me you see the bay, and if it was clear enough you could see Catalina Island right behind me. These corridors will be expanding in the near future, and the Hero twins have a very important part to play in the evolution and the purging of the planet in the near future. These corridors will be openings or gateways where there are certain prominent places on the planet where these energies from the extra-mundane world, the celestial beings, will be able to interface and interact with the five-sense physical world. Interestingly enough, just last Monday, just a few days ago, was the heliacal rising of Venus, which is a very important day in the Native American calendar for the axis of the energies of the Hero twins. Just very briefly, the Venus calendar has 4 phases, and it was explicated in what was known as the Dresden Codex. There were 4 codexes that have been found that escaped the purge of the European Spanish conquest. One of them was the Dresden Codex, which was thought to be lost because of the bombing. It was removed to Germany in the city of Dresden, and during the bombing at the end of World War II, it was thought to have been lost. It was later found shortly thereafter by a man named Forstemann, a German ethnographer named Forstemann, and in it is explicated these 4 Venus cylindrical phases. I'm not going to go through that right now because we're going to do a more thorough exegesis of the Dresden Codex in a future sermon. Just very briefly, the 4 phases are the superior conjunction phase, which lasts for 90 days. There is the evening star phase of 250 days. The morning star phase of 236 days, and the inferior conjunction phase of 8 days. In this 8-day phase was a very important phase, was when the Hero twins went into the underworld and did battle for the dominion of the planet with the 9 demonic forces of the underworld, at the end of which they arose in the heliacal rising of Venus in the east as victorious. And that day occurred this heliacal rising occurred just last Monday. It was I had planned to be out here and shoot a sermon on that day, and had I been here, I would have captured something very dramatic from the Western Corridor. There was, and it actually hit the news and what have you, here in the Santa Monica Bay, right between here and Catalina Island, in this corridor, there was a magnificent contrail or plume that appeared to be from some mysterious missile that the Pentagon and other governmental authorities could not identify. Now apparently that was either it had an expansion of the corridor or an attempt to close down the corridor by these 9 demonic forces of the underworld. But there were certain things that happened on that day. I ended up doing another sermon on the male-dominated hierarchy on that day. But in any case, that particular occurrence occurred right here in Santa Monica Bay. About a week and a half ago, I explained how there were certain high strangeness things that were occurring here in the Santa Monica Bay. And sure enough, a week later, something of a very dramatic nature, of what I would say is almost from an extra-mundane source or a surreptitious mundane source, was occurring here in the Santa Monica Bay, right issuing forth from that gateway or corridor. Now, these scenarios will tend to become more dramatic as we progress in time and as these corridors open up. At that point, because there were, on that day specifically, I felt some kind of a dramatic energy, and because of that, I actually went into a medicine ceremony and was in a medicine ceremony that night. I went into it at sundown, almost when this scenario occurred behind me, and I did have a relatively dramatic visionary experience through this Native American medicine ceremony. But we will be progressing more and speaking a lot more about these nine demonic forces and the 9 gods of the underworld and overworld, and the Nonagon, which encircles the planet, and how the hero twins and Enoch, first father, the Cornflower Man, are going to play a very prominent role in the near future, and explicating these things in future sermons. For now, the Nayahoshish Noashke, Chupanishanishke, Nitakvalaya, Ishpiyu Palashke, Hashtatama, Ishpiyu Palashke.